the basic theory behind the first stars, one of the basic theories that passed on is people with a lot of first magnitude stars are first magnitude people. They have first magnitude lives. People with second magnitude stars have second magnitude lives. So we have a mixture of all of them. So there's quite a vast spectrum of what you can get. And but each magnitude is 6 times brighter than the one before. Just like when we did the pentans, we had the big circle, then you had the second circle was 6 times it repeated in the zodiac, and the next one was 6 times smaller. But the magnitudes of the stars are like that. The first magnitude is bright, as bright as the sun, and then really stands out at night. The second magnitude is 6 times less bright. The third magnitude is 6 times less bright than that. So by the time we get to 5th and 6th magnitude, that the limits, 6th magnitude is the limits. Only people with really good eyesight could see a 6th magnitude star. Usually they start fading out in the 5th magnitude. How much you can see? If you get bad eyesight, you get less and less stars that you can see. Doesn't mean they're not there, but it's just the nature of it. But this, each one is 6 times the other. So there's, you're going to get, well, we're going to do this. So I'm going to close out of this. I had to explain this. And let's just get the stars in the horoscope. Here we go. Okay, so this is, we're going to work with Carl Jung's chart, which is down there's his chart with the ecliptic stars on it. I get familiar with it because you see the 2 stars close together. It stands out as the signature of this is the ecliptic. Now, this is a little table. It just puts the minutes 0 to 30, 31 to 60. It takes minutes of a degree and converts into decimals of a degree. Since the whole table is decimal degrees, you can look at a decimal, take the first 2 and switch it over to see how many minutes of it is a degree. Or you can take your planets when you're entering it in and something at 25 degrees, 20 minutes, well, 25 degrees, 0.33 decimal degrees. You can immediately use this. This is such a useful little, I made this table up, but it's so useful. I've used it anytime you get to big data or star things. In so many places it gets useful to use this. It's so important to me that here's my computer screen that you're looking at. And there's, I keep this, I stuck the 2 together and I keep them right here on the edge of my computer screen. I never am without them able to refer to them quickly. Degrees to minutes, that degrees and minutes to degrees and decimal minutes, or from decimal minutes over to back to degrees. It's easier to calculate things in decimal degrees. That's why the math usually does it like that. But they usually convert from degrees and minutes to decimal degrees, do calculations, and convert back. That's what the routines usually do. So, okay. That lets you, this graph lets you take your degrees and minutes of your planets and put the minutes into decimal minutes quickly. Just by a quick look, you can put it on. So here's the sheets we start with. Over here, sorry, just trying to get some space so I can see clearly. Okay. I have a little extra thing on my screen that's the forum menu, but you don't see it, but I do, so I have to move my graphics around it. Okay. In astrology, you want to find out anything that involves a little bit of calculation. But if you just got a computer program and give you all this right away, you're overwhelmed. You get too much overwhelmed. You don't know how to work one step at a time, which is why my classes go one step at a time till you got it, till you got it, till you got it. By the time you get up to this level, you can begin to see, wow, I can add this depth. This is something I can add. It's like adding other layers to your chart. And at a point where they can be functionally useful. So here, with mine, I've included the North Node, which we don't use that much, but it's a sensitive point. It's not a function, but I put the stars to that sensitive point. So my North Node was at 72.9, which really is 72.15, looking at my little chart. So I changed it to 72.9. I made an empty column. I made an empty space. I put it there. And like this is somewhere in the whole spreadsheet. You got the whole spreadsheet. So I put it just before it. I look at 72.9. I look, is there anything from 71.9 up to 73.9? In this case, it was only 1 star. So I make it in at the beginning, just before 71.9. I take the stars there. It puts it in. It tells me that was Pi Orion. Okay, so then I took Uranus, which is 8164.64 is 38 degrees, 385.38. Oh, it's 0.64. So 0.64 was 38 minutes. So my is 81:30. What's 21? 21. What was it? Sorry, 38 minutes of Gemini. So I'm looking for anything between 86.64 and 82.64. That's a degree either way. Any star between there. So I inserted a row in the spreadsheet, so it came up just before 80.66. The first star inside 80.64 is going to show 81, 81, 82, 81, 81, 81, 81, a whole bunch of 81s and 82. The whole bunch of stars here, because Gemini, the Milky Way goes through Gemini and Sag, and a bit of Taurus and Scorpio, so you're really getting lots of stars in those areas. So here's one planet, 81.64, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stars within a degree of it. That's a lot of stars. That's maybe a lot of masters trying to get the message across to that one planet. But the magnitudes of the stars, 2.69, 0.21. So Capella, that's one of the bright stars. Let's see a purple there. It's first magnitude. 4.64, that's fifth magnitude. 2.75, that's third. 4.38, that's in the fourth. 2.48, second. 4.83, that's fifth magnitude. 3.94, fourth magnitude. 1.78, second magnitude. 5.36, fifth magnitude. 2.87, third magnitude. So this has the magnitudes on the side, and you're looking at it. So in a certain, we're grouping the stars so we can see what they are. We're looking at the magnitude. In the end, we're going to make a table. We're going to count how many magnitudes, how many points of each magnitude we have, and see how many first, how many second, how many third magnitude stars are active in our life. Okay, this is a personal thing, just to be curious to see how bright a life you're supposed to live, or not. You can have them and not live up to them. And like, we're not consciously controlling the stars. The stars are sending little laser beams of light, of meaning, of relevance down into those degrees. Who scoops up? It's like the sun shines on everything, and we can be in a house, not get sunlight. We can be outside. We relate to where the sun, how much the sunlight is. These stars are there. They're putting the beam down. Can we tune in or not? It's on a higher frequency. It's not going to see it so much. A lot of people interpret the stars according to specific affairs, but on a mental or telepathic or another frequency, they have much more power or insight if you can clear that up to use it. So they imply elevating your life to live up to the nature of the stars, even up to the planets, is getting more divine. To be able to align with the gods, to align with the planets, to align with life. Wow. This is many different perspectives. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go that far ahead. Okay. So as we go along, the next one, my moon is at 109.81. That's 45. It's 49, sorry. So mine, I'm at 21.49. No, that's really, I'm sorry, I'm at 1949 of Cancer. So I look for 108.81, and I insert a column just before where that number would fit in. I insert a column, I type in the moon, I type in the degree. I color them red so they stand out a bit, but you can just put that in. Then these are the stars there would be 4 stars between 108.81 and 110.81. These are the 4 stars in it, and one's fourth magnitude, second magnitude, second magnitude. And then you can see which they are, the size of them, and go on. One of them has a Mars, Venus, Saturn rulership. So there's like, then I put in Saturn. And then once I put them in, I go in and I highlight and I delete all the once I've got this. I copy the database. I don't use the original database. I make a copy of it. Of this as a spreadsheet, and I put the spreadsheet that I name it my spreadsheet for my stars. You know, like you see Robin Armstrong stars, page 1. So, but I name it. So I've saved the file already before I start dividing and taking things out of it. So I know the backup's there. I have a backup and I have another backup, so I don't lose this. This is a huge, took a long time to get this together and sorted and organized. But it will, then you name it, you save it, and you have a file saying so-and-so stars. And then you go in, once you put your planets in, just in that 1 degree before, make that blank column and put the planets in, the next number of stars will be there until you get up to like 82.6, or 1 degree further for each of them. And then you just, when I do it initially, I insert another point at the end, another blank row or column, or blank row, sorry, at the end after it gets 2 degrees, that 1 degree orb. Then once I've done that with all my planets, I go back and I highlight and I delete all the other stars that aren't conjunct then I delete all the other ones that aren't, and this is what's left. This is the graph that's left. I go in and I might highlight and delete 50 stars that there's not touching anything in mine, or 100 here, 2 there, or 3 there. I just go through the database and cut it out. The whole thing takes a little while to enter it in to do this, half an hour, so maybe a bit longer if you're wondering as you go along with it. But there's 3 sheets, mine, ascendant, Neptune. Each one goes in, each one has a certain number of stars. So it's important to put it into the decimal, then just put it in the order, then you got the stars right there. Okay, it should, when I get the computer program going, it will do all of this, but it's not there yet. I don't have, these are databases that have to be, these would be apps that would have to go along with the program. So once you take my 3 stars and you add them up, I got 5 first magnitude stars. It says I'm supposed to be, it implies I'm supposed to be a first magnitude person. I'm not a very well-known person. I'm in a very elite area, but I've worked with the stars and I had they've affected me, and I certainly had inspirations from them and things. So like, it has been prominent in my life. I have 4 magnitude 2 stars. That's from 1.5 up to 1.51 to 2.55. Then magnitude 3 is 2.5 to 3.5. Magnitude 5, 19, 3.24. Magnitude 4 charts, 7 magnitude 5, and 1 magnitude 6. There's thousands of magnitude 6. I only have a few that are on the list that are somewhat seeable. So this is what you want to get to. You want to be able to get your chart of how much magnitude. You want to know which stars are connected, so you can look at them. And there are books that give definitions that you can work with. I tend to not. I find they're a little too narrow and too mentally associated. Interpreters tend to take away from the light of the stars as higher lights to tune into, but at the same time, it's worth checking out here and there. So Vivian Robson's book on the constellation, fixed stars and constellations, I think her book was the traditional, has 110 of the stars where the rulerships came from. It's probably available on Amazon or from online. There are other books about star names with the mythology of star names that aren't necessarily astrological, that are very interesting, because you get different meanings from Arabic or different meanings from Chinese meanings and stories for the same stars. There's so many different teachings tied up. Everywhere they put their special teachings into the stars so that they would survive politics and they would last for ages and people could continually tune into them. So our next group, we're doing Sigmund Freud's is next, and there's 4 sheets. He has 4 sheets of stars. And so again, I put them in, I whited out, I inserted a row. And then I typed in the date and which planet and the degree, and I found that where I got my Venus position, the Venus position 26.21, find it's 0.21. Then I'm looking at the chart for anything from 25.21 to 27.21. So that 2 degree orb, these are all the stars in that section. Then I insert a white column after that to blank, so I know those are the 4. I'm not going to confuse them. Then I go down to the next one, and this was 34.34 for Pluto, and I go from 33 up to 35, and there's only just these ones there. But I put a white line when there's no more, and then I get these all done, and then anything in between, I just highlight them all and delete them. Highlight them all and delete them, and you end up with this chart, this grid, with all the stars, the magnitudes. This is where it goes beyond what the